Good afternoon, awesome people. I hope you're all doing good. It's your girl in the house with her sister in the house. Today, we're so fortunate. Our sister decided to show us her beautiful face. So now we're going to enjoy her face for a change. She doesn't show her face often. So this is like premium viewing. There is this story that has been trending on social media all week, or shall I say, the second half of the week. I've seen so many people giving their own views and opinions about what has happened in this story. So basically, Hakimi is a footballer we all know from Africa, and he's married, and it is alleged that because he cheats too much, the wife couldn't deal with it anymore, and so they decided to go their separate ways. This issue has gone to court, and now the wife is finding out that all the assets that the man had, which she felt that she was entitled to half of, all these assets have been handed over to Hakimi's mom. Now, the question that a lot of us, the $1 million question that a lot of us are asking is she entitled to any of the money that he had or any of the assets that he had transferred over to the mom?
A lot of
And
us
what should we do as human beings in a marriage?
that
When you go into a
we
marriage for better, for poorer, for whatever, what should you do as a person to make sure that you protect yourself, secure yourself, and your future? If the marriage doesn't work, what should we do? Who better to talk about these things than my very own sister? I am not going to say too more. If you've come on this video and you're watching us, the only thing I beg of you is to please share the video. Share the video. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please do so and help me welcome my own sister Ikuamwa to the house. You're welcome, darling.
Thank you, Sika. Thank you, Sika. I just want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody around the world. And if it's already Monday wherever you are, happy Monday and happy New Week to you as well. The story of our brother Hakim, the Moroccan footballer who actually became famous because of the World Cup. It's something that everyone is talking about, both men and women, right? I was even surprised. There's some comments. People are making comments. Your wife is not your family, so she's not entitled to this and that. But what I want to really for us to talk about this evening is it can happen to anybody. It
Mhm,
can happen to a woman, right? It could have been the reverse, right? So today, I especially want our independent women. I want all of them to take a seat. Okay, I want all of them to take a seat, and I want them all to bring out their pens, their pencils, and I want all of them to listen. We
mhm,
also call it on all our men.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
all of them. We want everyone to listen. One of the things we all have to know is that every marriage in the Western world, marriage only has 50% chances. It's 50% chance that your marriage will last.
mm,
Okay.
mhm,
So there's nothing wrong with taking precautions. Okay. There's nothing wrong. And we've just learned this big lesson that just happened to Hakim's wife. She has kids with him, and 80% of all his earnings was going to his mom. So if he made 1 million, he's only keeping 200,000 and his mom gets 800,000. That's a lot of money.
mhm,
The truth in the matter is that this happens all the time. Okay? Especially in the East Asian culture. Okay? That's why if you live in London, you live in UK, or you live in Europe, or you live in North America, you realize that when any of our East Asian friends are married, they will
mhm,
always tell you that they live with their mom, their husband's mom.
Your
your husband's
mother-in-law.
dad, and then sometimes even grandmother, right? She'll never say she lives with her parents, right? Because that is how they do it, right? So the only way she is going to end up getting any real inheritance is if, God forbid, none of those people are in the picture.
Mm.
So if an East Asian woman is to be with their spouse and think that anything happens, she's going to get 50-50, she's not, right? Because everything will be shared among all the people that lives in the house.
Mhm.
Okay. So the lesson that we want to learn, I want everybody to learn, is that there are laws in the land.
Mhm.
And before you commit to a relationship, and I'm not only speaking to married people who are legally married, I'm also speaking to people who want to do living in arrangement, common law.
Common law. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Don't think because you are in a common law relationship with someone that the person is not entitled to any of your properties or assets in case you guys decide that, you know what, I've lived with him for 10 years, he doesn't want to marry me, he should go, and or I don't want to marry her, so I'm leaving. No. If that person decides to take you to court, that person will get the same right as someone
Who was married.
who was married. And I
Mhm.
just want to put a disclaimer here. I'm not a lawyer, okay? I'm not a lawyer. This is just based on knowledge and experience and what I've been exposed to over the years,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
So it's important that we always plan ahead of time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what I want to do is like, so whether you're in a common law relationship with someone or you are legally married to someone or planning to get married, okay, you have to know that it's gonna be 50-50. Okay. But if you end up in the East Asian living arrangements, everybody that is in that household is entitled to every part of the property. Even
Mhm.
if you don't end up getting a divorce, but you maybe one of you guys um go to the other side. Okay?
Mhm.
Everybody that lives in the house is entitled to the money. So I'm coming back to us, okay? Sometimes some of us, maybe you had a child, okay? Then you go and bring your mother from Africa to come and be your nanny, okay? You should know that in case anything to happen, if your mom comes and lives with you for a certain amount of time and you do own a property and you guys are going through a legal challenge, your mom, because she's lived there for a certain amount of time, is entitled. She can challenge it. She's entitled for the property to be split into three. Okay. And it doesn't matter whether it's your sister or it's your brother. So when we are doing all these living arrangements where you have someone come and live with you, watch the time, how long the person comes and live with you. Although even though you're not in any form of relationship with the person, but as long as the government define the person as a dependent, okay, and anybody that is your dependent is entitled to your property should you go through any legal challenge of where you guys have to split properties, or should you go into any legal battles where maybe one of you guys have joined the other side. Everybody that is considered a dependent, so whether it's your half children or your stepchildren, whatever it is, right? So it's important that we think about these things. This guy knew very well. He understood the law, he had good lawyers. And what did they do? They said that you should protect yourself and put all your properties in your mother's name. One time I was reviewing someone's, this has happened like 10 years ago. I was going through some documents. And then I know this certain person. The person is person who's parading as she's the CEO of the company, blah blah blah. I was parading through the document one day, through the document, and I realized that even though everybody saw her as a CEO, it was actually her husband that is the original owner of the company. So, ladies, gentlemen, you see someone, you think the person is successful, and I'm sure that's what she thought. He's successful, he has cars, he has properties. You're seeing the physical things. Do you know who it is registered to? Do you know who the real owner is? You know, Hakim's wife is finding out after she's already carried children for him. And I'm talking to the independent women here. Hakim's wife thought that she's a model or she's an actress, so she had her own money. So she didn't need to pry, she didn't need to investigate, she didn't need to protect herself. He had provided a home for her, they can all live there, the children and she has her money, right? And then now she stands in the possibility that she might have to pay him alimony. So women, stop saying you are independent woman. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing that for yourself. Can you think about your children? Can you think about your future? Let me tell you a story. This actually happened to someone. Okay. So this person was married to a guy.
Okay.
Before she married the guy already had kids. Okay. So she met him, he had kids with other women. Okay. And then the two of them got married. She had a really good job. Okay. And then they have well, she had a house. Okay. But the guy didn't really, he himself, this happened, this is the reverse situation. The guy himself did not know about how the property was acquired. Okay. So this guy was, one of those loose candidates, right? After she married him, he was still going around, and to the extent that he had kids outside of the marriage. Not only one, he had two. Okay. So it got to a point where, after a while, the woman, I think she had a mental breakdown to the point that she ended up getting into an accident.
Mhm.
So then she couldn't work anymore,
Okay.
so that she can take care of the mortgage and all those things. So the parents made a decision that they were not going to let their child die in this circumstance. So they're going to bring her out. My brother thought that he was going to get the good end of the bargain. What he did not know that the girl had bought the property in her parents' name. And this is somebody who is African,
Okay.
okay? From West Africa,
Mhm.
like us,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
If you hang out with the East Asian, because I myself have had an East Asian tell me this several times, right? Where, like, I had one that had a house in the Northwest, that I was working with. The house was in him and his parents' name. So when he got married, the woman is just moving in, and she's just moving in. If anything happens, the
She's
most
like a tenant.
so I don't know, people are screaming and scratching. If you are not ready to protect yourself, some people are ready to protect themselves. So the story I was saying, in the end, when my brother realized, right, he was just a tenant.
Mm.
Because what the law does is, because somebody else, you have joint ownership with someone else, right? You don't get anything. And that's exactly what has happened in Hakim's wife's case, right? So it's important that we don't be overclouded with so called love, right? We need to be practical. We have to understand that we are human beings, anything can happen. So when you are getting married, or you are even you have to be very sure, right, of how properties are acquired, how vehicles are acquired. Because sometimes some people are so careless. Oh, my credit is not good. Can you co-sign for me to get a car? Well, you're living with your husband. Your husband goes and co-sign a vehicle with somebody else, if he finished paying off that vehicle, that person is a co-owner. So God forbid anything happens to him, the person can come and carry that vehicle and then leave. When there's no law on the land, unless you want to waste your money on lawyers to try and prove that point, right? So all of these little things are things I want us to think about. I want us to consider, especially when it comes to so-called independent women. You're a woman, you meet a guy, you have a really good job, he also has a really good job. Okay? Anything you are doing, you have to make sure that you are very sure of what you like, how the legal entities are outlined. Okay? Because the worst thing that you want to do, look at Wendy Williams. She's paying for her husband, her ex-husband, and his girlfriend that he cheated on with her on. She's taking care of them, and now everybody could see how she looks now, right? I didn't hear people screaming and scratching about that.
Mm.
So these things are there. That's the law. So you have to sit down and reflect and say, what am I doing to protect myself?
Mhm.
What am I doing to protect the my sweat and blood? Right? I know people that usually what they do is when they buy a house, they put in their kid's name. Right? That way, if anything happens, there's no contention. Right? Most of us we check out. And I believe Hakim's wife, she checked out. Oh, it's okay. I'm not with him for the money. It's okay. Eh, But now she's the high income earner now. He's not.
So now she has to pay him
Well,
alimony.
the possibility that she might have to. The possibility is there. We gotta be careful. And that's this goes back to this whole idea of emotional intelligence. It goes back. You see how important that is?
Mm.
Because you have to be able to control your emotions to the point whereby you make much more better sound decisions. Sika, I'll pause here for you to interject.
You know, when I saw this story and all the things that have come on social media about it, how people are suddenly saying that because Hakimi's wife is not a blood relative of his, she's not entitled to anything. I find it very laughable. Hakimi couldn't have married his mom. He still had to go and choose somebody else's daughter to have children with. A lot of the time, this Hakimi story is what happens to we women. It is always the reverse, and we're always the ones who are trying to pick up the pieces 99% of the time. Why? Because when all of these things are happening, instead of us opening our eyes, shining our eyes, and not allowing ourselves to get caught up in the whole euphoria of the butterflies you're feeling in your tummy and how he makes you feel and what he does to you, we are busy concentrating on those other things and not thinking about ourselves. And sometimes when you and I and other people are on here, we're talking about self-preservation in relationships. A lot of us, are you trying to say that when people get married, they should just be in the marriage and be looking for property and not real love? What is real love? What does real love really mean? What does it mean? When you love something, do you hurt that thing? As far as I'm concerned, you don't. If you love your children, you don't hurt your children. If Hakimi was really loving his children, would he want to hurt the mother of his children? Would he? But when the cookie crumbles, now who is sleeping outside? Hakimi's wife. And she could potentially, now on top of everything, Like she's been cheated on, she's divorced, she's the one who doesn't get to, glide into the sunset because she has children to look after. So it's like two troubles. And now there's a potential third trouble, which is that she rather has to pay him alimony. So who is laughing here? So what I found very laughable, my sister Ekuamwa, is that a lot of people are trying to redefine what family means. When the Bible talked about the man shall leave his mother and father, and so would the woman, and go and cleave, and the two shall become one, what did God mean? When we talk about family in this sense, what are we talking about? And that's what I really want us to talk about as well as we continue the story, my darling.
Sika, most people are talking about saying, oh, because she's not his real family. But the thing is that I don't really, family has nothing to do with this.
Mm-mm.
This has got to do with the law, and Hakim and his family or whoever is his legal advisor are smarting the wife, right? Most people, most people don't, they just don't, they're not even aware of the many things that happens once the two of you become one. The two of you becoming one has many, many complications. Okay. And some of these complications sometimes I see it over and over and over again where people are not so prepared. Even me, sometimes I'm not prepared either, right? For those eventualities, right? But it's good for us to have this discussion where we really talk about these eventualities, right? So there's some key things that I just want us to talk about. Prenuptial agreements, okay? Prenup, okay? Sometimes we all need to examine ourselves, okay? If you are a man or a woman, okay, and you are extremely well to do, or you are in a position, especially when you are in this Western world, okay, you should protect yourself,
Sure.
okay, because a prenuptial agreement is pretty much a way for you to split your assets. Some people say, oh, but we're just getting married, and why we want to do prenuptial agreement? Oh, I love him, he loves me, why do you have to do this? Well, you have to do it if you, especially if you have family lineages that is at stake. Okay? Sometimes you have to do it to protect your father's legacy or your mother's legacy. Okay? Or family legacy. Don't get over emotional. There's nothing emotional about this. The Bible says a good man leaves inheritance for his children's children. Just like a
Mm-hmm.
good man has left inheritance for his children's children, don't go and waste it. Remember the story of the prodigal son. He went to his father and said to him, that give me my inheritance. And the Bible says that he went and wasted it on prodigal living. Sometimes there are some relationships that will go in that will lead us into prodigal living. So it's important that we seek legal advice regardless of the circumstances, as long as you know there's a family lineage at stake. And I believe that Hakim, they realized he had potential. He knows how to play soccer. He was young. She was older. He was 19 years old. Abba. He was technically still underage. So the girl should have already ranked in her head that they will have lawyers. In fact, their parents will be looking for really good lawyers to
Mm-hmm.
protect. And they got
Yes,
him
sir.
really good,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do about, whether someone is family or somebody is not families. There's some family that are very strong in the way they protect their legacy. So if you're going into a marriage or a relationship in such family, if they bring their lawyers, you go look for your own and meet halfway. It doesn't mean somebody doesn't love you or anything, or your marriage is a business transaction or not. It is the realities of life. That is the realities of life. Look at this girl I was talking about. I said she was on the highway, she was thinking, and she suffered a stroke
Mm,
instantly
mm,
because this guy was going about having babies everywhere. So if she had not, and she had a better job than he did, and then she had the house. So if she had not put, if she had prenup now, she didn't have prenup, but you see, that's one of the things. Hakim did not have prenup, but he had a way to still protect himself. Is it not the same thing?
eh,
Right? So for her, she didn't have prenup too, but she did co-joint ownership with her mom. For her too, it was her mom that she did co-joint ownership with. So because when she went through that, the doctors they declare her as not being having the ability to make legal
to work
decision.
anymore.
And the job that she had was a job that requires her to be physically fit, mentally fit, everything fit for her to do. She's not
Mm,
like you and I that we can sit behind computers and just manage, right? So her mom had to make the decision now to sell the properties, right? And thankfully, me, I'm happy that she had, I think, about two or three little kids. I'm happy that at least with the selling of the house, those kids can have a future, right?
good.
So those things can happen to anybody. It can happen in many circumstances. It could be the reverse. It doesn't mean someone is being trying to be mean or someone
Mm,
is not family or some. No, you have to protect yourself. You know, one time I was listening to a story where, and they were like, somebody was like, "You see, have you seen the people who are homeless on the streets?" And I
mm,
said, "Yes." Said,
mm,
"Do you know that some of them used to be millionaires?" I said,
mhm.
"What?"
Yes.
He said, "But marriage.
Mm,
Some of them get to the point that the money they owe is so much that they end up on the streets." Because you think that, oh, I have my law firm, I've opened my medical practice, or I started my business, it's booming, you are married, you have kids. My dear, you better sit down, oh, especially if
mm,
you live in this Western world. You better sit
mm,
down and think about
mm,
how you're going to do that. So, prenup, think about your circumstances, not for everybody, right? But if you look at yourself, and then maybe your portfolio, because sometimes people are sitting there, like I had a friend that she was a single mom, but her portfolio, even me calculating her portfolio from the side, I think her portfolio was about $1 million, right? But she doesn't know that, right? So if you don't have good lawyers to advise you in case she makes a mistake, and oh yeah, let's live in together or move in together, or she marries and think, oh, it's allowed, and she does not protect those assets, right? That could be an issue because somebody can take that and go on prodigal living on that. So I'm not saying what he did is right, but what he did, because sometimes what we think is right or wrong, you have to go and look at the laws. If the law says it's right, and for him the law says it's right, and he's not the only one, it's being done everywhere. At least I see it being done all the time. So there's like, so your opinion is not as important than what the law says. So draw lessons from it. What can I do to protect myself? And the second thing I wanted to also talk about is money. Money. Money is one of those things that we shy away from. But if you live in the diaspora, you have to know about the credit status of the person you are going to get married to. Okay? You have to know where the person stand in terms of their credit. And when I'm saying their credit, I don't mean
mm,
whether they have good or bad credit.
mm-mm.
I mean, you have to know the inventory of all the credits the person has. I want everybody to understand that if you live with your spouse and God forbid something happened to them, the bank, they'll come and they will collect their money. If they didn't get they didn't get the credit card, when you got the credit card, you were not there. When she got the credit card, you were not there. The banks don't care. You are responsible to pay off your spouse debts. And if you guys have any properties together, if you guys have any properties together, when you sell, the banks will come and collect their debts. Okay? So it's important that these kind of things, I know they're difficult conversations, but we have to constantly remind ourselves when it comes to money. Some people are so fixated. Oh, we should have joint accounts. We should have separate accounts. My dear, that should not even be your worry. Your worry should be how the person spends their credits. So, for example, if you have a house and you guys are joint co-owners, the other person can go to the bank, right? Come to you and say, "Oh, let's go get. I want to get a line of credit." Okay, you say, "Pew." Okay, the line of credit is gonna go against your house. Or if they go and get you, you see, oh, our car is so old, and our car is this. Let's go and finance a new car. Okay, all of those things you need to actually sit down. It's not your emotions that will should trigger you to buy the car. You have to do the derivatives of the consequences in case anything happens. Who is going to be responsible for paying that car? Is that car going to be going against the house? Because some of these debts, they can prevent you from selling your house.
You can put a lien on your property. And taxes is another one too.
I actually have taxes as my next thing. Okay, so don't go. Let's not skip ahead, Sika. Okay, so they go get line of credits. They go
Yeah.
and go to the car dealership, get a brand new car. You get excited. Oh, tear rubber. Well, how did the rubber tear?
Mm,
Right? Let's take
mm-hmm.
equity. Let's go back home. Let's go build a house or do this. How are you going to pay back that equity so that you'll be able to sell your house? Because the banks, they will be there, they'll be waiting. They will give you the money, right? So, how you maintain credits, student loans, you know, student loans, some people think student loan is free. You go and get the student loan from the government. When you get it first, it has the government seal on it. The day you finish school, it transfer to the bank. And then now you don't owe the government, so you are
Oh, the
owing
bank.
a third party, you're owing the bank. Okay? So don't get overzealous and get crazy with student loans. And don't plan for your children to take some either. Right? Do the best that you can. Okay? Plan for your future. Okay? Because sometimes we don't want to be like Hakim's wife. She was just enjoying the famous and the fame, being Hakim's wife, the glamour, the nice dresses, the nice vacation, the love, having such handsome Moroccan man, to carry around on the streets of Paris, and travel around the world. All of those things are glam. But you need to sit down and examine yourself. What does am I make have I put myself first? Right? Even the Bible says that you should love your neighbor as yourself. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not loving yourself, how can you love your neighbor?
Mm.
So all of these things are things I want us to consider. Okay? Money. You get married, your husband has $40,000 in student loan. You too, you have 50,000 in student loan. My dear, maybe you guys should all run opposite side. before I even decide to say I do, right? I once had a friend who was considering someone, and the person had $120,000 in student loan. I said, Abba, if you marry this person, da benida, right? And some people they have all these loans and they will not be like me and go and start with a such a car. Sometimes you need to drive a $5,000 car, my dear. It's
And pay your
true.
debt off.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to. Me, I even yesterday I was telling someone like I only bought what do you call it? A brand new car only because interest rate was 3 point something percent. 3 point it's even lower than current mortgage rates. So you need to think about all these little things. Oh, you live with you guys live you're married. Then instead of paying off your car, oh, let me go and trade it in. Why do you have to go trade it in? So that everybody will know you have brand new car? Do you know when you go and trade it in, a car is a depreciation asset. The dealership, they are more than happy for them. Ah, they want to sell their car now. So you come, you go in and you trade in your car, then your debts keep increasing. You have bad credit, your spouse or you guys have bad credit, you go to the dealership and then they sell you a car. Trust me, you go to the Honda dealership like I went, or Toyota dealership like I went. I will pay 3 point something percent. You will pay 29%, same dealership, because there's primary A lenders, there's B lenders. So if you are not, they will choose which lenders they will give you. By the time you realize, God forbid, you guys get into Hakim's and the wife's case, then the everything will just start falling apart, right? Then you have children between you and things get dirty, and then you realize that between the two of you there's debt to the point that sometimes, you know, he might the money will be messed up like this in this situation. So I'm begging of everybody, let's all try and live within our means. Okay, trading in the cars, buying cars we don't need, doing Escalade. You don't need an Escalade. Maybe you can afford a $10,000 van because you have more children, right? Manage it. Manage it. Because all those things, when it comes to splitting, everybody is going to get their own share. And the bank is going to give everybody um, their own bill to pay. So I'll pause here, Sika, before for you to interject before we talk about the tax.
Okay, so before we go into taxes, and for the purposes of our sisters and brothers who are not in diaspora and live in back home, and also all of that, to also understand this, because when this whole thing happened, I went and sought the opinion of legal people that if this sort of thing happened in Africa, what will happen? That's one, but also to advise just broadly. The first thing that I want to say in our traditional setting, please, if you haven't heard what I've said, open your ears properly so you can hear what I'm saying. When you meet a guy or a woman back in Africa, it doesn't matter where, as my sister was saying, make sure that you fully understand the person's background and what baggage this person is carrying. I'll tell you a story that became a legal point that was used to teach legal students. Okay. So this man had been in a common law situation, even with going to perform the traditional rites for a woman with whom he had 6 children. Then he said he didn't want this woman anymore. And of course, because there was no paper signed, it was just he took drinks to see the family as we do in Africa. They did the home traditional thing. He thought it didn't really matter, it was nothing. Okay. So he left this man and then he met a younger model, wanted this younger model, married this younger model. And unfortunately, the wife didn't have any children and couldn't. But this man brought his 6 children from the previous marriage. And this young woman looked after and raised these kids until they were adults. 20 years of marriage. Now, this man wants a divorce, doesn't want to marry this woman anymore, and wanted to leave this woman with nothing. They had, when she was married to him, through the pendency of the marriage, she had been there, raised his children, all of that. They had both, she had worked and helped, and he had put up a house. He had money, but he was trying to cheat this woman out of anything because he felt, ah, but you and I, we didn't have any children. So, what, you don't have anything. If you don't want me anymore, just pack out and leave. And thought that he could get away with it. The woman was like, no, I'm not going to throw 20 years of my life down the line for nothing. She got legal help. And when it went to court, it said, oh, yeah, yeah, it was only traditional marriage. But still, when you were doing the do, it was still doing, wasn't it? Yes. Okay. Do you also know that, by the way, that woman that you were married to, that one that you went and did the traditional thing with and had children with, do you also, by the way, know that because of the common interstate succession law, do you also know that that woman is also entitled with her children to a portion of your assets? Oh yeah, yeah, I know, but I left her too, and I look after her and I send her remittances. The court says, no, we don't care about that. You did that out of the goodness of your heart. But now you have assets and they must be divvied up amongst your children. And this woman who sat and raised your 6 children for 20 years is also entitled to a portion of the inheritance. The man was livid. He took the case out of the junior court to the Supreme Court, and they still ruled the same, that he had to share his assets equally to everybody. Sometimes we're dating men, and because they make us feel good and we're enjoying the relationship and all of this, he kisses me, he does this, he does that, and everything. It feels good. Yeah, it's nice, yummy, fabulous. Yeah. But after all of that, when he now says he doesn't want you anymore, and all the investment, the emotion, the time, and everything that is invested, it is also calculated as something. I don't know whether you've watched The Diary of a Mad Black Woman before. Have you watched that movie of Medeas? Oh, I love it so much. Why? The man felt that because he'd been married to her for 18 years, but there were no children, so she gets nothing. And because the side chick had 2 children, the side chick is the most important thing because she could give him children. Mm-mm. It is 18 years of cooking, 18 years of tolerating nonsense, 18 years of sometimes doing mama and papa, which doesn't even bring any good anything. The person you probably didn't even come safe for 18 years. You tolerated that, right? So all I'm trying to say is that people should not think that because certain people get into marriage and this one gave me children and this one couldn't, or after all, I treated her well and you lived with her, and so the people are not entitled to anything. Common law marriage is still marriage, whether it's 15, and it goes both ways. Some women think that when we live with men and we let them go, we just let them go. If you're the higher earner, you have to settle him too. I actually have a friend who was saved by the bell because she'd been living with this man. She'd been living with this man for a long time. She was the higher earner, and he was just sitting at home, just enjoying the money, drinking and everything. And he thought that because he was a good performer in the, so because of that, it means that he that is it. She was saved by the bell, by seeking legal advice. And then the lawyer said, hey, my darling, if you don't kick this man out before the end of this year and you allow the 1st of January to come, you will pay him alimony until he decides to marry somebody else. Oh, do you know that? But we are not married. We don't care. It is still common law marriage. You must pay him. She kicked him out. And that was that. Seek legal help at all times. Don't be caught up in this whole euphoria. Oh, he makes me feel good. The swinging pendulum. Oh, it dey sweet me. Well, well. Use this thing. Use it at all times. And open your eyes. Open it well. Whilst you are also enjoying the swinging pendulum and it's sweeting, you also use so that you're not crying. It swings both ways. I'm talking to my brothers and my sisters here. Don't be taken for a fool or a ride. Don't, because it is you that will end up crying. How many people haven't I seen? Because I have the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of things, just like my sister can, whereby people are married and they are caught up in this Akim's wife scenario. They are loving everything they are seeing. Because you live in a nice house does not mean your husband owns the house. Have you gone to see the title deed? Have you seen whose name is on the deed? Or you're just assuming that because he's in a Bentley and you are living in a 7 bedroom house, that the house actually belongs to him? What if it's something that he is renting part time? Because it is a family asset. It is for the family of which he is a part and nothing to do with you. You are just a tenant in the marriage. Don't allow events to overtake you, my darling. Protect yourself at all times, whether you're male or female. And having legal advice, seeking legal advice at all times, absolutely crucial. Let's not let the lovey-dovey and how he held me last time and where he took me to the mountaintop fool you into thinking that people are different. Human beings are different when money is involved. We all suddenly stop loving each other when money is involved, right? We all have the natural instinct of seeking uh, um, our own interest at all times. So please, let love and marriage not deceive you into thinking that you don't also have to seek your interest there, because you do. If for nothing else, for the sake of your children. My darling, let's go to taxes.
Please, before we move on to the next step, please send Sika some stars. Okay? Because we are learning here. This is free information. We could have used this opportunity to really ride the horse like everybody else is, but we're actually using this as an opportunity to really provide information that will empower you, strengthen you. So please send stars to support Sika. Okay. That's what I gotta say. Sika, there's one thing I forgot to talk about. Um, in terms of, because sometimes when we talk about assets, we think about the houses, the cars, and all those things. Public pension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm.
So if you're an individual, especially I'm talking to our sisters who are nurses in the hospital.
Thank you.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to whether you are in the US, whether you are in the UK. If you work in the public, whether you work as a nurse or you work in the government sector,
Public servant.
most public servants get public pension. That
Mm-hmm.
pension is not your CPP. The
Mm.
CPP, if you're in Canada, your CPP is different. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
America, they call it 401k. And also, if you work for the government, you also get a government pension.
Pension. Yeah.
Some of this pension is actually a lot of money.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, depending on how long a person has worked, like I know somebody who had worked in the public sector for 40 years, and he was going to get about 70, $80,000 a year in just a public pension. Okay. If you are this type of person, you need to protect yourself,
Correct.
because if you split from your spouse will be entitled to that money. Okay. He or she will be entitled to that public pension
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid anything happens to you, that whole money will also
Close
be
to.
going to your spouse.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So talk to your HR person, make sure that money, if you have children, I'll advise you, even if you have a good marriage or things are good, you see yourself together in the future, I will still advise you that once you have children, you allocate some of that money, because there is, if you talk to your local pension, or talk to your HR person, you can allocate some of them, split the money within between your spouse and your children. So that one is locked in, that in case anything happens to you, then your children will get this amount of that pension, that amount of that pension. If not, brother go carry, your sister go carry that money.
And go and give somebody else.
It can go to prodigal living. Okay?
Mhm.
We are having a conversation. Like I told you today, I'm going to break the glasses.
Oh,
Okay?
please go right ahead. Yeah,
We
go
have to
ahead.
be smart.
Mhm.
Okay? We have
Mhm.
to be strategic.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
you got married, maybe when you got married you had a job, you're making 50K.
Mhm.
Now you've gone to school, you got your masters, you got all this education, you're making 100, 200, $400,000 a year. Okay, all of these things, whether you're a man or you're a woman, you need to protect yourself, because all those things, when you show up in the court of law, you will have to account for all of these things. I know people who, during their divorce, they work, okay, to pay for their spouses, that their current family only gets the crumbs of what they make. Because if a woman or a man shows up with a good lawyer and you're the high income earner, if you don't take time, that's why you see some of these Oyibo people. You see that, oh, the wife filed for divorce, and the next you know, it's become a family massacre. Because by the time the lawyers look at everything, they are left with scrams. Okay, breadcrumbs. Okay, so this is serious conversation we are having here. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. I'll find it very sad that if Akim's wife ends up paying him alimony.
Mm.
And for the naysayers out there, if he gets a good lawyer,
It could
all
happen.
those things, if, because the thing is that he put everything in his mom's name. And then I'm thinking, this is just based on my own knowledge. I'm probably thinking that the mom is probably the owner of his talent. Because yes, you can own somebody's talent. That's why music companies owns people's record label, and they'll be like, oh, but that song was a hit song. Yeah, but I didn't make any money of it because of the contract that I signed, right? So the mom could be the owner of his talent. So Madame it might not end up that very well for her. So this is something we are all witnessing. So if you think this is bad, there are worse things happening.
Oh yeah.
I know people that they will divorce, and the woman will be living in the house and the man will be the one paying for the mortgage until the till the children finish university. So if you divorce when your children are like 6 years old, or your last one is like 6 years old, because you are the high income earner, you will continue on, you know. I'm always, especially this way, but you just have to protect yourself. You have to be smart. Okay. Now let's go back to taxes. Next thing we want to talk about, taxes. Okay. Be very diligent. Okay. Because this is a public forum, I don't really want us to talk much.
Mm.
But you have to know how to protect yourself. If your spouse is not paying their taxes, sit on their neck, make sure they are paying their taxes. Okay? Your property tax, although every tax that needs to be paid,
It's
make
paid.
sure it's getting paid, because that can also lead to lien on your house. The government going into your bank account and putting their hands in there and taking whatever amount of money that they have. If your spouse has a business, okay, if any of you ends up owning a business, make sure the business is incorporated.
Mhm.
If you are married, don't go and do self employment. Make sure the company is incorporated. Men and women listening to me, incorporate your company. Don't go and listen to somebody say, oh, yeah, make it self employed. Okay. No. Self employed is for you to eat today,
Mm.
incorporated is for you to survive till kingdom come. Okay. I know it's more expensive to get it incorporated than it is to do self employed. Don't
But
be
in the long
lazy.
run,
Don't be cheap. Get your company incorporated.
mm,
That's something we'll talk another time.
yeah,
But incorporation is what you need to do to protect yourself and paying the taxes. And
okay.
the last point is do estate planning. Do your estate planning. I know I talked about your pension, divide it. You can do your life insurance, divide it. Don't leave everything to chance.
Hmm.
Akil's wife left everything to chance, and now she's become the laughing stock of the world. Everybody is saying their own piece. Oh, no, this has nothing to do with whether he considered her as family or not. The law has no respect for anybody. If the law comes and catches you,
It's not about emotion.
it's not about emotion. She's just been caught by the law. She's just in a rock and a hard place. It has nothing to do about with his feelings towards her or how his mom feels about her. It has nothing. There are women and men going through all of that. We see it, all of us, we know the East Asian. Grandmother lives there, grandpa lives there, everybody. None of the women's relatives lives in the house. If she says she wants to go, she goes with her bag. If she goes to court, she'll still end up getting nothing because grandpa is probably the owner of the house. So your husband was just patching, right? There was one story of someone that, you know, she thought, and this was an Oyibo woman, she
Hmm.
thought that her spouse, the house they were living in, he thought the house was his. My sister went to court, filed. Guess what? The house was in the guy's mother's name.
Uh-huh.
Zero.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the difference between her and Hakim?
Difference, no difference.
There is no difference. There is no difference. And sometimes circumstances happen. Somebody, maybe they might be ready to buy a house and then they are not ready. They don't have the amount of income for the house they have. They want to buy, and then their parents might decide to co-sign. And guess what? The house now is co-owned by their parents. There's so many circumstances that can make these things happen, right? So let's not get very cultural and get all those things. There's so much. Protect yourself and be smart.
As we finish, there's a very sad story that I think I've given you a hint about before, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to talk about it because I know you would have a thing or two to say about it too. There is a woman in a Western country that was in the medical profession. The husband wasn't, but she was. Worked really hard. They had 3 children. Okay. And then during this whole pandemic situation, she traveled abroad. She had had cancer before, and so she was deemed that her immunity wasn't strong. So she shouldn't really have traveled at that time, but she did. Went for this thing, a family funeral, came back, and unfortunately got COVID. And in that country that she was living, because of her medical thing and being working with patients, they were put into hotels to protect their families, i.e., her children and her spouse. It was so sad that by the time the emergency services got to her in the hotel, took her to hospital, she was on ventilation, she was getting better, and then boom, and she was dead. Okay, this woman is in her mid to late 40s. Works so hard, doesn't have friends, works so hard, slaving away. She had a public pension, as my sister was telling us about. If you're a medic, get a pension, make sure you have an estate, have life insurance. She had all of these things. But she thought she was married to a loving, loving husband. Okay. Right. Now, this woman was an only daughter to the mom. The mom paid, like, sold everything of hers to look after her to become a nurse. So the least she could do was to try and put up a little something in her home country so that her mom could also have a decent place to live. She had also gone home and tried to put up something for her own self for later and all of that. Can you believe? Now, when the lady passed away, they did the funeral and everything. People supported them. Oh, he's a widower. It is so sad, and this and that and the other. People actually lent him monies. People who loved the family went to the bank and borrowed monies to this guy. Long story short, the woman's life insurance yielded six figures. Let's say 200,000 euros. Let's just say that in euros to this man. What does he do? Takes the money, doesn't even think about buying a house for his own family where they were living. That him and his children deserve to live in a decent mortgage paying house. So that when he also dies one day, at least the kids have the house. Goes to his home country. Yeah? Yeah. And takes all the 120, 200,000 euros to go and build or buy a property in a place that he doesn't even live. His children will never live in this place. He took the 200,000 euros and went to that place and bought property over there. Yeah. Doesn't even think about his children's future, their school fees, that they shouldn't have to take loan or whatever to go to school. No, student loan to go to school. He goes to buy a house with his deceased wife's life insurance. Okay. Within 1 year, his old Laimomo from back in the day, old flame. Uh-huh. Now the coast is clear now. Madame don't buy, she's not there anymore. So yeah, Laimomo comes back in the picture. That same house, that same room, that same bed that he shared with the stupid wife that had the 220,000 euro. That's where he put this new woman, sleeping with her, doing mama and papa day and night. That same house. He forgot about all the people he owed monies to, all the people who had mercy for him when he was in dire need. Yeah, as soon as the money came, he took 220,000 euros and went to buy property in a place he doesn't live. How wicked can you even be to your own children? So when we talk about these things, we're not just saying it because we have nothing better to do with our time. It is based on the things that we see and we hear about on a daily basis. If this woman now took her life insurance and said, on my death, please keep this money till my children are 21, and then I want this 200,000 euros to be split equally to these children. That is a down payment on a house for each of these children's future. Even if they took student loan to go to school, they could buy a house and be paying this off bit by bit. Maybe one day be able to take equity from that same house that they've bought to pay off their loans. But no, she loved her husband so much that he's now the single owner of this money. And even wanted to go and drive out the woman's mother, the poor mother from that house that the daughter bought for her, and wants that one too, my darling. Yes, that is what is happening now. So comments. Yeah.
This is what I say, prodigal living,
Hmm.
right? They take the money, the boy took the money his father and the legacy his father has built, took it and went and did prodigal living, right? So, yes, we have to be, estate planning is critical in part of this protection. Just because you go and buy a life insurance policy doesn't mean that the life insurance policy should be allocated 100% to your spouse. You can allocate some of the money to your children.
Mm.
Your pension is the same. You can
Mm.
allocate part your pension in percentage to your children.
Mm.
Okay. As long as you have a child, they come out and like, yeah, they're entitled to everything that you have. So, women, men, protect yourself. I always hear people complaining about me. I'm like, why are you complaining? The laws are there to protect you. Use them to your benefit. Assuming that our sister had just given him only 50K out of, and then allocated the other 50K, 150,000 pounds to her children. No matter what happened, whether Oga go carry another woman or he doesn't marry, those children's life are secure. Secure yourself. Plan and secure yourself. Estate planning. Some of these things are basic. You go, you get your HR person, they give you the forms, you just do the percentage allocation. You don't need a lawyer to do that. When you call your insurance broker, you yourself calculate how much is it going to be for me for my funeral. You know, calculate how much will it be for my husband to be able to take care of himself and take care of the children. God forbid anything happens to me or my wife. God forbid anything happens to me. So that if there's money there, allocate it to your children. They will have a down payment for their own house. They will have money to go to school. The money will be released by the insurance company the moment they turn 18 for them to be able to use it to go to school. You know, there is nothing wrong. Don't feel bad. Don't make anybody make you feel like you're a bad person because you are thinking transgenerational, right? When we listen to the story of Joseph, when his brothers came to him, he said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good because God was thinking that I have come here for prosperity's sake, for the future's sake. That is the reason why I had to come to Egypt." So you need to think about the future, because you don't know what's gonna happen. Even that I know someone whose husband pie and it's not been able to get out of bed to go to work.
Mm-hmm. She can't.
So think about all those circumstances. What's going to happen to the future of those children? So it's important that we really think so we don't end up in this situation because now I feel bad for those children.
Mm.
Mommy worked so hard and even died in the
Mm.
line of work.
Mm.
So the insurance that she got from work,
Papa is
Oga,
enjoying. Mm.
her pension too, he's carried all of it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, now.
So
Yes.
and the thing is that even if you don't have a public pension,
Mm-hmm.
in Canada, if you buy at a younger age and then you've been working and have CPP,
Mm-hmm.
the CPP goes to is paid out,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will pay it to your child. Your last child is 21 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
those things are there. You just need to
Mm-hmm.
be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
Be in tune with the
Mm-hmm.
laws of the land.
Mm.
Hakim's wife was not in tune, and
She
some
was
of
just
these
enjoying.
or just enjoying. Some of these men, they go to Europe, they go and play football. They carry all these Oyibo women, or some of them, it doesn't matter. They are doctors. They carry all these Oyibo women, and then they don't think about all of those things. My dear, if you go and carry them, and you are the high ender, eh? The day she said that she's no longer interested in you, and for them, I know, I know somebody who they ended up selling their house for 1.7 million, and the guy
Mm-hmm.
only carried $150,000,
No. She's not stupid.
right?
Who was paying the mortgage?
Uh-huh. Right? So these things are happening every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think like, oh, you are in love with Dobby. If you are a man, this is not the time for you to start hating women because it happens to women too. This
Mm-hmm.
is not about sex. This is not about gender. It's not about anything. It's just about you being street smart. You got to be smart. You got to be. Take what you're doing and do it well, right? Don't go in there with your emotions. Exercise emotional intelligence, right? Don't think that because you decided that you want to have some sort of estate planning, right? This one is not prenup. You have estate planning, how you want things to be allocated, should in case anything happen, or should in case you guys decide to go your separate ways, right? You need to take all of these things into consideration because you have 50-50 chances. Once you have children, it's even easier. If you like, change the ownership of the house to your children. So anything happens, everybody, it's time for you to go and hustle for your own house, right? You can do all of that. Nothing is stopping you from passing the ownership to your children. Nothing. You have to go get a lawyer and get it done, right? Don't now be resentful and bitter because the woman ends up taking everything and then you end up with nothing, or the man ends up taking everything. Did you plan? Did you sit down and reflect on how you have grown? Right? You open a business. Did you make it self-employed instead of making it incorporated? So it's separate from your marriage. Because if you make it self-employed, it becomes part of the family income. If you make it incorporated, the company is a standalone.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to pause here because I think if we talk about this, it's just
Yeah,
like
we're gonna
we
go on and on and on. Yeah.
we just need to really be knowledgeable because some of the comments I was seeing, I'm like, remember I said, Miska, we have to talk about this. I'm like, you need to know the rules of the game because you don't know how to play the game. It does not mean the person is mean. You just did not play the game well. Hakim did not play the game well. She got caught up in all the glamour. And that's what happens. Some of these footballers, it happens in America as well. Celebrity women, celebrity women who are paying singers, some of these women, all these Mary J. Blige and all those things. Most of them want to go do common law and they are paying alimony different places. You're a man, every woman you meet, you have children with. Do you
Ow.
want to be for the rest of your life? Maybe you have a child with one woman, that woman will not care. But there's going to be one woman you go have a child with, that one, she will milk you dry, right? She will take you to court and collect everything, whether you're married or you're not married to her. Men, protect yourself. Don't be jumping from one woman to the other and having children everywhere. This is
Mm.
not Africa. If
Mm.
you're a man and you live in the diaspora, make sure the woman you plan to have children with is the woman you're going to commit to. Don't be
Mm.
going around and carrying different type of things. Today you have a child with Kwesi Ajua,
Mm.
tomorrow you have
Mm.
with Amma. Tomorrow, if
Mm.
you're doing all of that and you have a good career or you have a thriving business, you are just on you and Hakim's
No
wife.
difference.
No difference between you. Don't say, "Oh, but I'm not married to them." That's what you think. Because you've not been entangled with the law. The day that you have an encounter with the law, that's the day you realize that the land that you live in, there are laws there. Okay. So we want to think about it, our prenup, the way we pay our taxes, the way we manage money before we get married, if we are married, how we allocate our insurance, how we allocate our pension. These are key things that we all need to think about. We need to reflect on them. And remember, don't be like Hakim's wife. If you're a man, don't be like Hakim's wife. There's always something for you to lose. If you're a woman, don't be like Hakim's wife. Independent women, independent women. You see a guy, he has his own house, blah blah blah. He marries you, you carry your two legs inside that house. You've not seen the deed of the house, you've not seen the ownership of the house. Every day he's collecting money. There are some women you are helping pay mortgage for a house that you don't know the owner. The day that you file for divorce, they'll be like, the house. Oh, by the way, that house now, it's my mom's house. Ha ha. It has happened to somebody. in the house. You know, she was paying mortgage, but paying all the bills in the house. She wasn't paying mortgage, but she was paying the bills in the house because the house actually did not even have mortgage,
Oh my God.
right? The house was the guy's mom's. How are you different from Hakim's wife, right? Hers is millions of dollars. Your could be hundreds, thousands of dollars. All of it is painful, but that's the realities of life. If you don't arm yourself with knowledge, if you don't plan, if you don't have an execution plan, and you just ride by the emotions, we love each other. Oh, da 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 da. You know, women, especially women too, who are marrying men or men marrying people who already have been in previous relationship, have a good conversation, okay? Because spousal support and child support eventually can entangle in the way your estates are distributed in case something
Mm.
else happened.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So maybe you're in a relationship and then you meet a guy and he has sole custody of his children. Okay. The moment the two of you guys get married, you also become sole custody of his children. If anything happens and you are the high income earner, whether you're a man or a woman, you also will be part of the child support. You will be paying for child support for that child that is not yours.
Hmm.
Okay? Let us be mindful. You have to be smart like the serpent, but harmless like a dove.
I want you to answer our sister Malfori's question as we round up, and I'll see if there are other questions as well.
I'm assuming so. The thing is, this question is really tricky. I told her to send a message in the inbox. Okay? It depends on their living arrangements. Okay? So if you are living together, if you guys are living together, then yes. Okay? The only way is if you're not living together and you have finalized your separation. Okay? So that is something that you have to be mindful of because when I want to drop this nugget, okay, and this is coming from me. Sometimes, okay, and I'm saying this for both men and women to protect yourself, okay? You move into, you guys are married, you live in a house. All the bills is in one person's name. Don't do that, okay? So let's say that the utilities, and I'm talking to people abroad, let's say that the heat and hydro are in your husband's name, okay? You also put the cable and internet in your name, okay? Because if there's any dispute between the government in the sight of the government only will take your utility bills. The government will not take your rental agreement. The government will not take your bank account statement. They will not take your credit card bill. The only bill they're going to be taking is your utility bill, which is cable, internet, water, sewage. Okay? So, this is a word to all of us, especially those of us who are not coming abroad. Okay? Try and allocate the utility bills amongst yourself. You're going to thank me one day. Okay, so if you're a woman, you're listening, maybe your husband brought you abroad, or you're a man, your wife brought you abroad. Don't take responsibility and take some of these two things I'm talking to you about. Take it, it will protect you one day. Okay, so that's what I will say. We'll have to take Emma's question offline because it depends on the circumstance. I think Uche's question, yeah, Uche, if you didn't sign a prenup, it doesn't matter, right? So if you know you have a lot of assets, and that's why when it comes to the celebrities, we see them all the time that they always do a prenup, right? So if you didn't protect yourself and put a prenup, even somebody comes in Canada 6 months, the person is entitled as little as 6 months. So what about 3 years? 3 years is even too long, right? So let's protect ourselves.
See the comment?
Well, Hakeem, I mean, he was a young guy, so I don't even think this was something Hakeem himself decided. I think this was something the adults in his life decided because he was only 19 years old.
To
I don't think
protect him.
I don't think that's the decision that he made. I'm sure he would have made he was just like living it and enjoying it. I honestly think it's something that the lawyers and legal advice, because he's a footballer, they have those, right? They to protect his brand and also to protect him because he was only 19 years old. Yeah. But Ronaldo, maybe because Spain, where he is at, it's not legal. But if he was in North America, whether he was married to his wife or not, she'll still be entitled to 50-50. So you can't use that as a measuring stick, because in Canada, 6 months would have been enough. It's enough for Ronaldo's wife to be entitled to half of his assets. But I probably think Ronaldo also probably has something similar to Akim's, or he has brain up. He has something, right? So all those things, they are all protecting themselves. Why come people are not screaming at Ronaldo, right? So that's the rules of the game. You gotta play it and play it well. Thank you, Ade. You did the right thing. You know, don't let somebody bully you from protecting the legacy of your parents, and pass it on to the next generation. Okay, Sika, do you have anything else to wrap up? And
No, I just wanted to say to this sister of ours that the laws are very different wherever you are, and you need to understand how the things work where you are. At least here, at the end of the day, the way things work when it comes to child support is that it depends on the person that can prove that the primary caregivers of the
yes,
child,
dependence.
whether
Yeah,
you had the child biologically or not, is your auntie or uncle, even if it's a spider. If a spider can prove that they are the ones that look after the children, the spider gets the child support. That's just how it works.
I'm like, I remember what, I don't know what class I was that I learned this. I was like, and I was arguing with my teacher. I was like, no, but Roberta, that's the laws of the land. What do you, I said, so it's, you mean somebody comes the moment they enter my house and they are codependent on me. That's it. You know what I mean? So codependent, right? There's no link to blood or anything. So let's, because the reason why sometimes we don't hear of these things is that most people don't even know these laws. So they don't even go after people for it, right? But you end up, you know, meeting your Hakims, right? Who knows all the loopholes and everything? It happens, right? So it's important. You're sitting here, oh, let me go and bring my mom to come and live with me, or let me go and bring my husband's going to bring his mother, and then or my wife is bringing the mom, and you are the sole breadwinner or the high income earner. My dear, maybe you should go and pay for childcare, because the day things start crumbling down, that'll be you might end up hating people. That's what you see. Why do you think these Oyibo people are always, you always hear about the things that they do. If you think that it was such a rosary and smooth transition, why would they go to that extent of putting themselves in such a situation, right? So let's be smart. Let's all try and be smart. Okay. And then for those of you who want to hide asset back home, I have heard instances where lawyers have taken properties back home and also added it as part of the portfolio. So just because that you decide not to make properties in the abroad or have anything in the abroad, it does still, you still are not protected,
Yes.
because all that your spouse need to do is
To prove.
prove, all they need to do is prove that you have that property, that there was transactions that came through the money that was earned to build those properties. She doesn't need to prove that much, because when you're in a civil suit, your burden of proof is only 50%.
True.
Okay?
Yes.
So it's important that, so just do the right thing. Do the right thing. If you need, see a lawyer, you know, review your work documents, allocate everything fairly. If you have children, give it to them. They're your children. When they turn 18, they will give it to them.
Mm.
And when you guys decide to part ways, everybody say, by the way, bye bye. I used to love you. And we know we already gave everything to the children. So what's there to fight over? Nothing.
Bye.
Yeah, yeah, what do you think?
Yes, and everybody fades happily into the sunset.
Yes, yes, baby, yes, yes, yes. Let's go. If you want to buy a house now, maybe it's time for you to go and start looking for your own, because the one that's there is for the children, right? So that's what I would say. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's been very informative. Thank you so much for shaking the legs out of the table. Now the table is broken.
I'm sure a lot of people are gonna listen to this. Please don't forget to share, okay? And then subscribe, share with your friends, girlfriends. Especially, women are leading the charge now in most places. Share with your brothers, share with everyone, okay? Um, as I said, I'm not a lawyer. These are things, these are life experiences. Okay. So if you want to know, wherever you are, whether you're in Europe or you are in Canada or you are in Africa, go and see a lawyer. Okay. So as long as you have a means or you have some sort of asset, go and see a lawyer and let them be the ones to help you reflect through the process. Right. But know that, anybody can be Hakim's wife. Okay. Anybody.
Thank you so, so much, my darling. I've taken enough of your time. It's a Sunday afternoon. Go chill out. Go kick your shoes off and do whatever you do. And thank you so, so much for coming.
Thank
Guys, we love you so much. We'll be back next week again, same time, for another interesting topic that we can all learn the lessons from. We love you. Mwah. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Bye.